All right, this is a video guide for this worksheet called RESTs Introduction. Just an introduction to the RESTs that we use in music. Okay, so there's two main exercises here. Number one, rewrite the rhythms that follow, replacing each note with the rest of the same duration. A little later on, I'm asking you to insert bar lines to complete the measures in 4/4 meter. If you haven't yet, I would recommend going to the textbook to read up on the small little section on rests, as well as a posted online lesson on musictheory.net. Okay, so this is pretty easy. And by the way, to use these videos, you can stop me anytime you want and just try it out on your own and then check with the answers, etc. Or go back to a certain section just to make sure you understand how how I arrived at a certain answer. This is all here to give you as much feedback as quickly as possible. Okay, so. This is a rhythm. All of the note values here we have talked about already. Half note, quarter note, eighth note. Remember, these are beamed together. There's one beam, which means that these two are eighth notes, and a quarter note and a whole note. Okay. So basically, I'm just asking you to translate each of these notes into a rest. That's all. Okay. So for example, I started this with a half rest, okay, which sits on the top of the third line. Right. So the other note is a half note. So of course you would also add a half rest. Notice that the rest only goes sort of colored in halfway. It doesn't go all the way into to fill the space. Okay. Next is a quarter note, and here's an example of a quarter note rest. The way that I do the quarter note rest is I sort of do a sort of sideways Z for zoo, and then sort of a C for cat as a little tail. So I'm just gonna add that here. Okay. Again, that's how I do it. Sort of a sideways Z, and then sort of a little tail. Okay. Next we have another half rest, so we're just gonna add a half rest there. These are eighth notes. Okay, so the eighth rest looks like this. You start with a dot and a little curve, and then you it almost looks like a number 7. Okay, so you can just sort of put that in the middle of the staff. Right, and then another 2 quarter rests. Now the whole rest, it sits below the line. Remember, the half rest sits above the line. The whole rest sits below the line. It sits below this this second line here, from counting from the top. Okay, so the half rest is sort of like a cake, while the whole rest is sort of like a fluorescent light bulb, hanging on the ceiling. We can also use dots on rests just as we did with notes. Okay, so you have a dotted quarter note here, which translates to a dotted quarter rest. Then you have an eighth note, also a dotted quarter rest, eighth note. Same thing here. I can add a dot to an eighth rest like that. Okay, so all I'm doing is dotted eighth rest. A 16th rest is very similar to an 8th rest, only it has 2 tails. Okay, very much the same as the 2 flags. Okay, so same thing here. All right, I'm just gonna fill in the rest of that. Quarter, half, and whole. Finally, you can also put dots on a half note or half rest. So that's what I have here. Again, I can continue this with quarter, eighth, half, quarter, eighth. Here's a dotted quarter, eighth, and a dotted half rest. Okay, so that's a basic overview of the first part.